Now, I know you've seen this and I know you've been confused because there are so many conflicting beliefs about if the market's going to go up or down or what's going to happen tomorrow, right? So what is going on in the housing market today? What are some actionable steps that you could take today to see if it's a good time for you to buy? I'm going to show you how you can analyze your market to make sure that no matter what time you buy a home, it'll be the right time because we're looking at it objectively, right? We're not putting our feelings and emotions into it. Oh, I like these cabinets. No. All right. Damn the cabinets. We're going to put some numbers and some stats behind what's happening. And based on that, you make your decision. So let's get into it. A lot of people are championing and encouraging interest rate hikes because they're hoping if we have higher interest rates, that will force sellers to put their prices down. But be wary of cheering on things like that, okay? Because that is a double-edged sword. If rates come down, there is a potential for things to become more affordable, but not a guarantee, right? But you better believe if the Federal Reserve is switching courses, if they're doing the Fed pivot, right? And they go from raising rates to cutting rates, is because shit is getting real, all right? Things might become more affordable, but at the expense of a recession, right? So you might be able to get into a house finally, but then boom, you get fired. When they're cutting rates, it's because they see people have exited the market, right? No one's really getting into debt. No one's really trying to borrow money. No one's really making investments. And that's when they step in and try to incentivize you. No, come back, okay? It's cheaper to get into debt. Come on. Right? So when you see that, just know that we are going to be in a recession if we're not in one already. Now, when it comes to where to buy, right? Which housing markets are going to crash first? I personally would be doing nothing related to anything in the West unless it was a good opportunity, like painfully good opportunity. And let me bring you down to my computer so we can get some visuals behind what I'm actually saying, okay? So when I say the West, I'm referring to these states over here, right? California, Nevada, Idaho, Oregon, Utah, Arizona. These areas in particular are being heavily impacted by all these mass tech layoffs, okay? Their home growth is not growing as much. This map is showing the home value growth, right? If it's red, that means it's been increasing by a dramatic amount. And if it's blue, it means it hasn't been, okay? And you can see the whole west side of America is blue, baby, right? Things are slowing down over here. Additionally, let's see the for sale inventory growth, right? Again, in the West, red means that a lot of inventory has been placed on the market and blue means the opposite, right? Almost everything on the West side is red or hot red, right? Red hot. A lot of inventory, Utah specifically, right? 232% jump in inventory. And I'm gonna get to a reason why that might not be necessarily a good picture, but give me a second. Now, the Midwest is not as impacted. As you can see here in both charts that I've showed, they are having some increase in inventory, but not anything like the West, right? Also, if you look at the house payment as a percent of median income, right? Because a lot of times people are thinking, oh, we have to have a crash because prices went up so high. But if the incomes in the area can actually afford that, right? Like if people are still able to buy homes, there's not much incentive for it to go back down, right? So in parts of the Midwest, for example, a lot of it is under 30%. Right? A lot of these homes, like what you would pay for your house compared to what your monthly mortgage or what your monthly income is, right? Is under 30%. And if you've ever rented in an apartment complex, for example, what do they always ask for, right? You have to make 3 times the rent. Another way to look at that is your rent should only be about 33% of your total income, right? So in the Midwest, they pretty much meet that in everywhere. Maybe not so Wisconsin, but it's pretty close, right? So they are more insulated and protected from getting severe price jumps in the recession. All right, the Southeast is a little bit of a mixed bag. Florida kind of being the outlier. Florida's always the outlier. But there's certain parts of Florida that are actually seeing some price cuts, right? And seeing some, maybe you could start looking in there a little bit. But in general, Florida, I would say avoid, especially Miami. We're not there yet. Parts of Tampa, Jacksonville, like we're starting to see some corrections, but again, not a lot to talk about. Georgia is another example of a place that home prices have definitely skyrocketed. But even then, right? Even after the home prices skyrocketed, your home payment is still just 33% of your total income. Pre-pandemic, it was 16%. So they was living a good life, right? People's, for the most part, right, more or less. Now, obviously, this is just over the state. We have to go into the metro specifically too. But for the most part, right, most people can afford a third of their income going towards their rent or their mortgage. So you're in good shape. I'm not saying that means that Atlanta's not going to go down. I'm saying they just have a little bit more cushion, right? Their median income is $68,000. They probably can still support the market. And as far as the Northeast, again, it's a bit of a mixed bag. A lot of people were actually fleeing the Northeast and going to places like Texas, going to places like Florida, Atlanta. So a lot of people were migrating out, and they're starting to kind of trickle back in, whether their jobs are forcing them to come back or just regular migration patterns, right? So you have to kind of be a little more specific. This is from the ReVenture app. If you don't know this guy on YouTube, he is awesome. I think his name is Nick, and he has this really amazing website that I think is going to make an app. So you could definitely go in here and play around with the metrics yourself and see, what your city's talking about. But make sure to look by the metro because it's a little bit more specific, right? Like you might see that Florida's, a hot market, but then when you come down into it, for example, yeah, right, there's going to be some scattered blue in here, right? So it's just like when people are voting, right? It looks just like that kind of voting map. Now, let's get into why you have to kind of look at these numbers with caution, or make sure you're looking at the full picture and not just taking one number and running with it, okay? So I mentioned earlier, Utah, right? For sale, their inventory has grown, skyrocketed 232%. So pretty much 3 times the amount of homes, damn near, are on the market again. So you might be thinking, wow, they're crashing, right? People are just flooding the market with their homes and everybody's anxious to get out. Let's look a little bit deeper. So you'll see in here, Utah, the inventory is actually still below pre-pandemic levels, right? So right now they have about $8,300 about 8,300 homes on the market, but pre-pandemic, right, it was 10,000, 86, 9,400. So even though they've had this dramatic 200% increase, it hasn't even gotten them to what they are normally at before all this drama, right? I think from 2020 to 2022, it's really hard to look at percentages and take them seriously because there was just such gyrations in the market, so don't only look at the percentages, make sure that it actually lines up with what the historical norm was. Let's look at another example of why it's important to look at these metrics together. Your house payment as a percentage of your income, right? So in California, which is crazy, right, 62% of your income goes towards your house payment, right? So that sounds a little crazy. But let's go to the monthly house payment. Is that normal? No, it's not. It's also jumped up considerably, right? So this is not normal, right? If you're looking at their house payment as a percentage of their income, it's normally it's still high, right? Like it's 34, 38, probably in the high 30s-ish, right? Pre-pandemic. Down here, you have to ignore this too because this is the last housing crisis, right? So we have this kind of little in-between information right here that we can use. And it's basically, mid to high threes. So we see this being at a whopping 60%. I would think that has to come down a little bit more. All right. So in order for us to make a move right now in this current market, we have to do a few things, right? And number one is determining your pop, is what I'm calling it, but your pissed off price. If you plan on buying this home and never selling it again, I mean, yeah, that might suck if the house price drops, but it literally doesn't matter, right? Who cares what happens to the price? If you're never going to sell this property, timing it would be nice to buy it at its low, but if you're never going to sell it, eventually you're going to get the appreciation from it. If you wanted to, rent it out, you get the cash flow from it. It doesn't matter. So don't stress yourself out worrying about these details, right? But if you think you're going to be mad at, maybe a 20% drop, well, then maybe you should put some more money down or just keep that in mind and saying, listen, I'd be really mad if I spent $400,000 this year and then next year it dropped down to $320,000, right? Like that'd piss me off. Compare that to what happened last time. And let me say this, like past performance is not indicative of future performance, right? But at least it gives us like some sort of gauge, some sort of like idea that we can have of what we can expect, right? So going right back into this map. Right, coming right back to this map, right? Let's say you were living in California and you said, if my home value drops by 20%, I am going to be pissed off. Well, if you look at the last time, it dropped 41%, right? Double your pop. So if you think you're going to be pissed off, you need to just really either get a grip of reality, right? You know what I'm saying this because I love you. Come to terms with what reality is. Reality is these prices are extremely elevated. There's probably going to be a dramatic drop. It's going to feel a little bit more dramatic because the prices are just that much higher than they were before, right? So if you need to get into a home, just understand that what comes with the territory. You might not be able to recover your price for some years. But again, if you're not going to sell the house, it doesn't really matter. The average drop across the whole nation during the last housing crash was 27%. So if you just walk into home ownership with this kind of idea of maybe I might lose that much, maybe you can put up a deeper down payment like I mentioned because that'll kind of offset it, right? You won't be as underwater. Most people only put 7% down, All right. So if you're only putting on 7%, and the average is 27%, well, then maybe you're going to be 20% underwater when all this is all said and done. And if you have a secure job, or you feel you have a secure job, or you have emergency cash flow, like we talked about in my last video, right? If you have these other exit strategies, you'll be fine. Okay, so here is a surefire, well, not surefire, but here is a really, really good way that you could make sure that you are protecting yourself, even if you end up completely underwater on your home, right? In a perfect world, we're going to put down enough down payment so that even if there are corrections in the market, we still protected our principal and we'd be able to exit that home and make a little bit of money, right? Hopefully that's the goal. All we got to do is run the numbers. I am typically of the camp that if I buy something, an asset, then I don't necessarily want to sell it, right? So I'm more along the lines of trying to rent it out before I actually sell it. And maybe you're going to have to do that if times get kind of tough, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to my property calculator, which is free. You could download it in the link down. You can download it in the link below and do this with me. I would definitely suggest, if you are serious about looking for a home and you're serious about home ownership, that you spend, I don't know, it doesn't have to be every single day. It has to just be routine, whatever is routine to you, whatever you can actually do. But I would suggest at least once a week looking for homes in your area, okay? And when you find that home in the area, you're going to pop it into this calculator and get the warm and fuzzies about whether it's a good deal or not, okay? So if you do find a home that you like, you're going to pop that home into this calculator, okay? Purchase price, whatever the purchase price is, whatever you decide to put down. Like I said, 7% was the average across the nation, right? So I'm estimating these closing costs. It might be more, it might be less. This is just to give you a good idea. And this is actually pretty high. So hopefully that's conservative enough, okay? It tells you how much cash you're going to need between the down payment and the closing costs. All right, then you get some information about the loan. You're going to put in what the interest rate is right here. So I think right now we're actually at 6.5%, right? So that's not fun. All right, now here is a part that's the differentiating factor, all right? You want to make sure that you can rent this property out if you need to. My realtor kept asking me, why are you worried about the rent? Baby, because I'm an investor, that's why. If you're able to rent out the space in a way that pays for all the expenses, right? The mortgage, the interest, the property taxes, all of those things, and even put some money in your pocket, you're doing good. So run the numbers on the property and make sure that you can rent it out if times get hard. And I tagged the video below where I do examples of this myself. You're going to look in the same place you look for the home, right? If you're doing the MLS, I'm not sure if they have a renters area, but either way, you'll go on Redfin, you'll go on Zillow, you'll go on, Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, right? Get on any of those apps. They have a sell option, but they also have a renting option. And in that same area, in that same zip code, you're going to look up houses with the same exact credentials. So if you got a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, put in and just filter out a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, because houses will definitely rent for a different amount than apartments. So you don't want to get confused here, okay? Then you're going to look and comb through that area and try to find a house most comparable to the one that you're looking to buy, all right? And get an idea of what the amount is for that house. So let's say maybe houses in that area go for $2,500, all right? You're going to put $2,500 here. And I'm going to zero these out. I have these options there because sometimes people want to buy duplexes. That's what I'm looking for. So you'll have multiple units in the house. But if you're doing just a single family home, single rent, right? So $2,500. I mean, I could tell you right now that's obviously not good, right? Based on this loan amount. But let's keep going, right? And when you do rent it out, you're going to have some other expenses that you need to consider, right? So you're going to have the mortgage, of course, but then you'll have property taxes for whatever amount that is. And again, if you're on any of these websites like Zillow or Realtor.com, they give you an estimate. I don't think it's perfect, but it'll get you close enough, right? Insurance, again, they give you an estimate, but you just put in whatever you feel is comfortable here. The PMI is going to be on here automatically if you do anything less than 20%, so you don't have to touch this at all. All right, so then you'll see your expenses, your required expenses. These are the things that you absolutely have to get paid, right? So if you're looking at trying to exit this house, you need to come up with $5,042. Then you have reserves, just in case the place gets empty or vacant, right? You want to make sure you can actually cover the mortgage even if somebody is not in there. Capital expenditures for big ticket items like the roof, like the HVAC, foundation issues. Management, which is typically like 20%, like if you want to just hire someone to do this for you. And then repairs, right? So whatever percentage you feel comfortable with is really what you put here. But let's just say we have all of that, and that's $350 additional that we would need in order to keep this house going, right? And have some sort of reserves. So basically, if you were only able to rent that house out for $2,500, which I think is kind of low. I mean, honestly, let's just say $4,000. Even though we still know that's still not good enough, right? But then if I were to rent this out, I'd still have to come out of pocket $1,042, right? For the required expenses, and really $1,600 if I wanted to do, reserves and things like that. So it's obviously not good. This is not a good investment. If you want your house to be an investment, you have to treat it like that. A lot of people will say, oh, my house is an investment. But then when you talk about renting it out, they have no clue what you're talking about, right? You're going to be in trouble, because if you're upside down on your loan, guess what? That means you're not getting out of this house without paying something. And you don't want that. You want to be able to keep that asset, right? And then offer somebody else the ability to live in there and just pay rent, and you cover all the other fees and stuff, and in exchange for their rental money, right? Which will actually help build your equity up in the property. You're pretty much getting a house paid for you, right? And you were able to exit and save your ass, because if you were out of luck, you lost a job, right? The last thing you need is losing a job and having a house you cannot rent out because you didn't do the math before time. This recession is going to be an opportunity to really pick up houses at a really good rate and just catapult your net worth, right? And all the options you're gonna have, because you're gonna have more freedom and flexibility. And if you want some more tips on how to protect yourself and how to prepare for this recession, you know what to do. Go ahead and watch this video. And until next time, keep your money up.